This is an open letter to Twitter. Bravo. You're turning as shitty as Facebook is. So bravo, you're going in the right direction. Salutes. Here's the thing. Twitter. Here's the thing, Sane Society. You know when most people, when they make love, they like to hear music. Many people enjoy music during their, sexual time. So, but you do know, also we all know that, different people enjoy different music during sex. So while some people enjoy jazz and classical during sex, other people enjoy, rap and heavy metal. So it's a wide range of taste that people have with regards to music during their amorous period. So when you look at Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, a white man supposedly on the left and a white man supposedly on the right. One thing that they have in common is that they're both very white. Pink skin from Europe. But not any pink skin. The rich ones. Most pink skins, like the rest of us, poor and destitute and trying to struggle to just, keep their head above water. Whether these pink skins are in Georgia, Ukraine, Belarus, or Russia, or France and England, wherever these average poor pink skins are, they're like the rest of the world, they're being used and abused. It's the rich pink skins of the societies that, for example, Elon Musk compared himself to, the George Soros of the, right. And I compare him to Mark Zuckerberg of the right. So the problem is not that they're on the right and the left. The problem arises from the fact that they're white. And that problem is that they're rich white folks. Sorry, not just white, rich white folks. The problem is that for the rest of these folks, from both sides, they both want to fuck us. That's the 99% of the population of the fucking planet. They both want to fuck us, both, leaders on the right, rich people on the right, and the rich people on the left. They both want to fuck us. They just like to listen to different kind of music while they're fucking us. So while, Mark Zuckerberg and people on the left in the Democratic Party like to fuck us, poor races of all kinds, all races and poor white people, they like to fuck us on the left to the soundtrack of freedom and democracy. The fucking of the black people and brown people and yellow people and red people and green people, that fucking is going to take place. If forcefully, if necessary, like, rape, as in case of Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Cambodia and the raping is going to take place. They just, on the left, they like the soundtrack of freedom and democracy. However, the people on the right who also like to fuck you if you're black and the brown and the yellow and the red and the green and poor whites on the right, these people like Elon Musk like to listen to the soundtrack of capitalism and Christianity. You see, under Elon Musk's tent is Elon Musk and a bunch of Christian fellows. Under, Mr. Trump's tent is Mr. Trump representing the rich white fellows and a bunch of Christian fellows. They like to fuck you to the soundtrack of capitalism and Christianity, if possible, when possible. The whole, it was the right who took care of East Asia and tried to take care of East Asia and Vietnam war. That wasn't a left war, that was a right war. They were trying to, the idea was fucking the natives, but they did it to the soundtrack of, capitalism and Christianity somewhat still, but mostly capitalism. But Christianity is always on the background, the reason we're going in. I mean, come on, George W. Bush and Tony Blair became Christian brothers when they undertook invading Iraq. They literally became Christian brothers. This one already was a Christian brother. Tony Blair apparently is a newly baptized Catholic. I mean, considering the Catholic Church, how many people in the Americas got killed because of a tacit approval or direct approval of the Catholic Church. Let's not go there. Here's my point. The rich white folks on the left and the rich white folks on the right, they both want to fuck us. All other races as well as poor white people. They just pretend it's for a good cause, and their cause that they usually pretend is on the right is for capitalism and Christianity, and the left is about freedom and democracy, has become freedom and democracy. Under this banner, not only they have invaded the rest of the world under different banners, because there are two banners, and if you can't sell the banner over here, you change the banner and you sell your product under a different banner. It's like changing the name on your product. Your product of rich white people is invasion, domination, and accumulation of wealth. That's the modus operandi of rich white people. And there is no, there is no depth to it. Rich white people don't have any depth, because there is in the history books that the Chinese did go to Africa, but according to their tradition, they loaded up their ships and took presents to Africa, and they did it a few times. There was never any idea that the China should go and kill Africans and replace Africans with Chinese people. That was never an idea that the Chinese ever had. They don't need it. Why would they? They got their own land. So the rich Chinese do not have that mentality. It was the representatives of Qing from China went to Africa a couple of times apparently during their history, many times, but in different periods. Apparently they have gone to Africa, but they have taken presents to Africa. Instead of going and trying to shoot the natives, they went and gave a gift to the natives. So what I'm trying to say is that this overemphasized aggressiveness and violence is apparently specific to rich white folks. This overly aggressiveness and violence. Indians have had, have been living there for a long time. I mean, when you say that an empire is 1,000 years old, what you're trying to imply is that this empire didn't wanna go for the guts, didn't wanna grab it all. Because when you try to grab it all, it's becomes a gambit. It becomes a gamble. You may get it, you may not get it. Just recently, Elon Musk, as a rich white man, made a big gamble on Donald Trump, to becoming a president. Sort of, let's go for it. Let's go for all of it. That level of aggressiveness, raw aggressiveness, you can only find in rich white men. The other races have had rich people, have rich people right now. They are not as aggressive. Again, emphasis is because, when you say that, some empires in India lasted for thousands of years, was because they weren't going out to grab it all. They weren't going out to grab it all, so they had a big piece of land that they were in charge of, and they were doing their best, but they weren't interested so much in grabbing the next land and the next land and the next land. That's why they lasted for thousands of years. But the British Empire lasted for what? 200 years, 100 years, 200 years, out of the British stupidity of, we want it all. We want it all. We need expansion as fast as possible. We gotta have it all. We gotta have our finger in everybody's pie and up everybody's ass, because we have the right to have it all right now. Salute. You know why the Vikings didn't have an empire? Why the British lost their empire so fast? This idea of, we want it all. Rich white people are very aggressive. I've seen them in action. I worked in car dealerships for considerable number of years, different car dealerships, and I've never seen more ruthless, aggressive people than rich white folks. Ruthless, aggressive, in business, in life, whatever you call it. Rich white folks are ruthless and aggressive, and it took a very ruthless and aggressive person. Let's put it this way: it takes a very ruthless and aggressive person to reach the top of the white societies. In general, it takes a ruthless and aggressive individual to reach the top of any society, but the competition is very hard in white societies, because reaching the top of the heap, reaching the top is very, very important, much more important than in many other societies. Many other societies in this world, I've told Mr. Musk previously, many other societies in this world are much more relaxed than the white societies in the West, in terms of, I gotta have this bag, and I gotta have this pussy, and I gotta have this car, and I gotta have this, and I gotta have that. It's a bit of a madness that the white people from Western Europe and now North America and somewhat South America have, of this aggressiveness, that I gotta have it. I mean, just look at it. 50,000 of Uncle Sam's soldiers have been sitting on in South Korea for 50 years? More. Yeah, since the 1950s. So 75 years. For 75 years or 70 years, 50,000 American soldiers and about 200,000 civilians are living in South Korea and providing some kind of service. Apparently they're holding the land to protect one kind of Koreans from another kind of Koreans. That's the whole idea behind, going there to protect the, female Afghans from the male Afghans. Sort of like, what part of that is your business? But this is what I'm saying. Rich white people are extremely aggressive because it does not make sense for you to be in somebody else's land which really doesn't belong to you, pretending that you're protecting one group of the locals from the same group of locals. It's like they got one tribe, they're called Korean tribe. You divided them up, you put soldiers on the ground and you say we are protecting these Koreans from the other Koreans. They're not two Koreans, they're one Koreans. You see, this is what I'm trying to say. The Chinese didn't, wake up one morning and said, no, we're going to go to Africa and instead of taking them presents and just, sightseeing, we should, take some chains with us and let's see what we can catch and bring it so we can bring it back in chains so it can work for us. Not many races on this planet think like this. And those who do think like this, those who don't think like this are the ones who hold empires for thousands of years. But those who are very aggressive and always thinking of expanding, like rich white people, they lose their empires soon. Netherlands, the British, the French, these guys always had, tried to put an empire together, whether it be their neighbors in Europe, Austro-Hungarian Empire, whether it be in Europe, or then they expanded into Africa, they always try to add land for themselves. The French, the British, even the inland Germans had a few colonies in Africa. So this is characteristics of rich white people. Never is enough. So they're always looking to find new ways to fuck you and I. They just like different soundtrack to the forceful fucking that's going to take place. These guys like capitalism. The guys who just won apparently like a lot capitalism and what was the other? Christianity. Some of them have like Christianity more than others, but they both agree on capitalism. And apparently this lopsided capitalism in which like 100 people own 100% of the assets, we're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting to 100 people owning 99% of the assets. Apparently this is the objective. This is where we have to go, we have to reach, and because for everything to be owned by that 100 people, that's the most important. You know why? Because these 100 people know where to allocate assets. That's the important thing. And education and healthcare and housing are not, good allocations as far as the rich white people on the right believe, is that education, housing and healthcare is not really important. What is important is some way new for us to be able to pay for the wars that we want to undertake because we are an aggressive empire. Again, repeat folks, overly aggressive empires are very short-lived. You can't be expanding until you hit the wall. You can't be expanding and not expect to hit the wall. soon. If you're static, you're not going to hit any walls. You know, you build your empire with anybody who agrees to be within your empire, and you stop. And you keep that empire for 1,000 years, and you try to, you know, take care of your citizens within that empire. But what we see is Uncle Sam's empire, the really intelligent, rich white folks who are in charge of this empire with the help of the fucking British. I'm sorry, don't ask the British what to do with regards to your empire. And don't copy from the British, because the British, if they were any smarter, they would not have expanded their empire so fast, not being so greedy. They had a few places overseas, and they would have stopped to keep the empire indefinitely for 1,000 years. But they're not smart enough. Uncle Sam's managers would do good if they actually embrace the Chinese and say, hey, how do you guys keep your empire for thousands of years? And it seems we rich white folks can't get the hang of it. And then the Chinese will explain to you that first of all, we didn't want an empire. Anybody who was civilized enough wanted to be within our empire, had a physical connection to us. It was within our lands, and we collectively came together and became an empire. Yes, we had many wars and many this, but we never decided to expand outside of our land because we weren't that aggressive. And we know that if you stretch the tent too much, the tent is going to collapse. That's common knowledge. Any successful empires that have lasted for thousands of years, no. You don't stretch the tent too much. You're happy with what you got. Because if you stretch it too much from the peripheries, it's going to collapse from the middle to the Sane society. So, in their wise choice, in their wisdom, the rich white folks have come up with a new way of paying for their wars that they want, because they're overly aggressive. The rich white folks. So they have come up with something called cryptocurrency. It's sort of like, and today on NPR, the chief of the, I believe, Federal Reserve, Mr. What was his name? It's not important. The gentleman came and said, yes, Bitcoin, gold, it's just like gold, it's just digital. Jerome Powell. And I'm thinking to myself, are you fucking kidding me? I already made a video explaining how gold cannot be like gold, because gold is a commodity. It's not because, here's the thing, it's not the scarcity of gold that makes it valuable, it's the fact that it's a commodity makes it valuable. The fact that it's scarce makes it expensive commodity, but its value comes from that you can use it for something, that is, make shit with it. On the other hand, cotton is not, scarce. Scarcity is, one of the characteristics of gold, but cotton is not scarce. Because it's not scarce, its price is lower. But it's still a commodity because you can make something with the fucking thing. Cotton, you can make something with it. Gold, you can make something with it. So they're both considered as commodities. Mr. Jerome Powell has come on NPR and stated on some conference, Mr. Jerome Powell has said, and which NPR repeated it and brought it up in the news, has stated that Bitcoin, it's gold, which means it's a commodity. And the reason for it, and these smart Alex come up with the reason for why it's a commodity, because it's scarce. It's not the fact that it's scarce doesn't mean it holds its value, so it's a commodity. Because to be a commodity, to be considered, to be written between the price of gold and silver, to write Bitcoin, to do that, it needs to be a commodity. Bitcoin is not. It's scarce. It may be scarce. I don't know computer programming. They tell me it's scarce. Okay, it's scarce. First they told us it's only 21 million. We said, okay, so it's 21 million. That's scarce. But then they said, but that means 21, when you say something is 21 million, you're putting a barricade on both sides and saying you can't go below zero, you can't go below 1, and you can't go over 21 million. Then they said, no, it's open from the other end. So if Bitcoin is open from the other end, it's not a really closed system. There is no scarcity in Bitcoin because it's open from the other end. It may be capped at 21 million, but if you can have 0.000000001 Bitcoin, that means it's not scarce. That means you can produce as much of it as you want from one end, and the fucking thing is not scarce. Just like you're saying that you can't go negative numbers, you can go positive numbers, but those numbers also have to be whole. You can't say something is scarce to 21 million if you can go 0.0000001 is also considered as a unit of that currency. There is no number lower than 1 cent in the unit of currency in dollars. There is no number below 1 cent. You can't say half a cent. No, that's it. We capped it as 1 cent. They're telling you that Bitcoin is capped at 21 million. However, you can go 0.0000003 Bitcoins. That's also, a unit of currency. In this way, the bottom fucking thing it goes to infinity. You can put 1,000 zeros in front of it and come up with 3. 0.1000 and then the number 3. You have 3. How many satoshis are there? Apparently limitless. Because there is an unlimited fraction that you can divide by. I've noticed there is no limit to the fractions that is used in Bitcoin. There's no limit to the fractions. I've seen really large numbers. Apparently there's no limit. So what part of it is the limited? So first of all, it's not a commodity because Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies are not commodities because you can't make anything out of it. That was their first claim, that it's a commodity. Well, if you can't make anything out of it, it's not a commodity. And second, they came and said it's a limited number. It's 21 million. Okay, fine. But it's open from the other hand. You can have a very small 0.0 whatever, 3 Bitcoins. A very small figure. That's literally, you're saying it's infinite from the other end. So that scarcity part is also not true. It's not anonymous. It's not scarce. It's not. They claim it was anonymous. We know it. If you can track something online because it's a blockchain and every transaction is noted. Where did it come from? Where it went? If every transaction is noted, how can this be anonymous? You could have sold a bad good 50 years ago and it's still on the blockchain. It shows up that you sold a bad good 50 years ago and there was a claim against you because it's on the blockchain. So it's not anonymous. It's not finite because you can go many zeros behind the dot. And it's not a commodity. What is Bitcoin? It's another currency that they're trying to inflate in order to pay for the military in the intelligence complex, because they feel they need to expand, because we're dealing with rich white men, whether they're on the left or on the right. They are very aggressive. Come on, the last winner of presidential election was apparently a fan of a very bloody sport of UFC, which, you know, people try to knock each other's brains out of their ear. So, or break something, or get as close to breaking something in each other's body. Shit. Go as far as breaking, but not break it until the guy says uncle. Would you want to say? Can anybody object that this is not a rich white man are not aggressive? Can anybody say that? Overly aggressive? No, nobody can say that. So, but they mask this aggressiveness behind things that they can call good. You know, freedom and democracy is a good thing, right? We all want freedom and democracy. Although you have, if you're living in large cities, you have zero freedom, and the more concentrated the population is, the less freedoms you have, just by the nature of it, because, you know, a concentrated group of people can only be kept safe and secure only if you lock it down all the time, because the concentration of population, you know, brings a certain level of insecurity. That's why you have so many cameras in the cities, because you can't have security unless you know, lock it down. So that's the freedom. And the democratic part, well, we just saw, you know, it's not, you know, the Democrats have been having machine picked candidates for a long time. So it's so the left, the whole spiel about the rich white man on the left who keeps saying that we are fighting them for freedom and democracy because we have it so much, we want to give some of it to them. Well, I was just trying to explain that you don't have it too much, you don't have freedom or democracy. How can you offer it to somebody else if you don't have it yourself? Anyway, so the point is this: it's a shill. It's the music that they like to fuck the rest of us with. It's a, you know, it's a soundtrack of freedom of democracy. That's how they like to fuck us. Fuck the black and the brown and the yellow and the red and the green. They like this to fuck us in the South, and poor whites. They like to fuck us to the soundtrack of freedom and democracy. But the problem is with the Elon Musk crowd and Mr. Trump crowd. You know, as Mr. Trump said it himself. This is not me. He said it himself that he identified with Elon on one instance based on the willy-nilly or nonchalant way of both of them treating their employees. You know, basically you use them and lose them kind of way that Elon goes through employees. Use them up and then throw them away because they are serving a purpose. The employees are like a tool. You have, you know, your wrenches and you have your hammers and saw, and you have an employee which is another tool. So, you know, and if you say anything of that nature, that why don't you treat your employees a little better, Elon Musk is going to say, okay, you don't want it. Jeff Bezos is going to say, oh, you don't like the way we treat our employees? No problem, we're going to bring robots. We don't need your fucking asses. So, yeah, again, apparently on the right, they understand each other. So, capitalism and Christianity really go together because capitalism is very faith based. If you're poor, your fate was to be poor. Church can sell being poor to people. One of the main functions of the church in Europe was to tell poor people not to rise up against the rich, and they said it's your fate to be poor because God determined it that way if you didn't want to be poor. Now this is 200, 300, 500 years ago in Europe, but the same message is being passed around in these mega churches in North America today. Again, the same message of, if you're rich, God wanted you to be rich, and if you're poor, you're not working hard enough. And, it's not about education, it's not about healthcare, it's not about, welfare, it's not about housing. No, if you're poor, I guess, you deserve it. So this is the message of the right. But still expansion of the empire. But thank God you can say maybe Elon Musk is just a very small percentage more forward looking than the rest of the rich white folks, by which I mean that he's at least trying to say that, okay, let's go and take our empire to space. Let's be aggressive towards space. It's sort of like rich white people are aggressive, and it's just, hopefully they're aggressive more towards space now and colonizing space instead of colonizing the rest of fucking planet Earth. That's what I mean. It's an itsy bitsy percentage better, Elon Musk, but still he, as a aggressive rich white man, he's very anti-human. Anti-human and pro-human doesn't mean you come and say, "Oh, I love humanity." Pro-human shows with your actions. If you treat your employees well, you're pro-human. If you treat your employees or your poor people or other races like shit, because then you're in action, you're treating them like shit. You see what I'm saying? In action you show that you're not pro-human. If the idea of an employee is to use it and lose it, and next use it and lose it as if you're dealing with robots, if that is the objective, well, yeah, great, you're doing a great job. But the idea that anybody thinking, white or other races, poor white and other races, the idea to think that any of these rich white folks who are very aggressive think that the quality of life should be better for all their co-inhabitants of planet Earth, that idea is very ridiculous to these folks. Both Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and these are the names that we hear daily, but they're not necessarily the evil people. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families that think even worse than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg. They have worse ideas. 1% of the society who's ruling North America and Western Europe and wants to rule the rest of the planet. The same guys who think having military bases in Korea is somehow helping Koreans. The same rich white people who think having military bases in Korea is somehow helping Koreans. What the fuck are you talking about? It's like Imagine my neighbor. Imagine I have a problem, misunderstanding with my wife. Imagine my neighbor comes in and says, "No, I'm going to stay here in the middle of your bedroom to keep the peace." And I'm like, "You mind? This is me and my wife. Yes, we do have problems, but we really don't need you in the middle of our bedroom to keep the peace." But then, then Uncle Sam's managers say, "No, no, no, you do need us in your bedroom because..." And I was watching Mr. Judge Napolitano's program, and Colonel Wilkerson, I believe. Hello, sir, how are you? A brilliant guy, but at one point he said, sort of like, "No, no, no, South Korea has autonomy. No, no, no. Yes, they feel bad that we may want to attack China from there and use them as a lily pad to attack China from there, and that's what the Koreans have problem with. But they don't have any problem with us having 50,000 troops there and 200,000 civilians to back up the troops. They're not really, they don't really mind that. They have total autonomy." I'm sorry, sir. With all due respect, I like you, but how can you say they have any kind of autonomy in South Korea, where you say that there are 50,000 U.S. soldiers on the ground and 200,000 civilians on the ground? How can they have autonomy? You know how long? You have. Don't think now. Think 1,000 years ago. You're a city that supposedly has a king, but another king has 50,000 soldiers stationed in your city. Would you think that other king has any kind of autonomy, even if he has a 50,000 soldiers himself on standby? Do you think that with the presence of 50,000 soldiers from another king from the other side of the planet, you think that king would have any kind of autonomy? What are you talking about? They're manning the watchtowers. The soldiers from the other king are manning the watchtowers around his kingdom, around his citadel. You think this has an autonomy? You think the Koreans feel autonomous? Are you kidding me? No, sir. Korea the way things are, Koreans never felt any autonomy. In reality, do not have any. It takes one phone call from a U.S. president or anybody of a higher ranks who can order these, U.S. soldiers to do a coup d'état if they don't like the leader. If for some reason, they can't peacefully get rid of a supposed leader of South Korea. They can do a coup d'etat in Korea. Just Uncle Sam's soldiers can do a coup d'etat. If they can't get rid of a leader that they don't like peacefully, they can do a coup d'etat in North Korea South Korea with one phone call. One phone call, the rip and ready Uncle Sam's soldiers go in, lock down the main city, parliament, get rid of the old guy, put the new guy in, whoever it is. And they did it so many times in the 1950s and 60s. So to come and they can do it again. They have the same manpower there that they can do the same. So to say that South Korea has any kind of autonomy or feels autonomous or capable, no. They don't have any morale. Because because another king's soldier is manning their citadel. Do you think South Koreans have any kind of self-respect for themselves? The soldiers from another kingdom have been manning the citadel for 70 years. Self-respect? Autonomy? They do as you say, but don't mistake because they're scared of you. But don't mistake that for they're happy. No, they're not. Which occupied kingdom do you know in history? Which occupied kingdom was happy? You know, they have a distinct race. They can tell each other by the distinct race that they have. They're all Koreans, but a white kingdom has a bunch of amalgamation of different races of soldiers, which the white kingdom has collected from around the planet, has on their land. But it's run by white people. We all know that. Rich white people at the top of the Anglo-Saxon Empire are running the empire very badly, are running the empire to the ground because of expansionism. This idea, again, live fast, die young. This is a saying in English, live fast, die young. This is what is happening, has been happening for the past 500 years to all these very fast, live fast, die young European empires. Couple of hundred years in the life of an empire is not long at all. It's only, you have to be very, very aggressive and hungry to try to expand too fast in order to screw it up. And that's what has happened to European empires, now Uncle Sam's empire. This over aggressiveness that the rich white folks have is making their empires very short-lived, because it's not an empire by consent. They don't build empire because yes, they have been, most old-lived empires are empires built on consent. Neighboring areas join hand under one banner, and they ruled mostly by consent. You never try to rule by consent. Uncle Sam's managers, and before them the Anglo-Saxons, the British, always had a gun to the native's head. Sign this or I shoot. Sign this or I shoot. Always. Sign over your land to us or I shoot. Sign over your land to us or I shoot. This is the unwise way that the white people, rich white people, have run their empires, and they have run their empires to the ground in very short duration because of one reason: over-aggressiveness. Too greedy, too over-aggressive. Look at Mark Zuckerberg, look at Elon Musk, and look at Jeff Bezos. Does any other word beside over-aggressive and greedy comes to mind when you look at these folks? One is on the left, one is on the right, and the other one is trying to stay in the center. Supposedly. There is no, as I said, they like to use different music when they're raping us. But us means, all black and the brown and the yellow and the red and the green, and poor white folks. They have the same thing in mind. It's just the facade is different. Too much testosterone, too much insecurity leads to Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk. Too much insecurity.